I was crashing at my buddy Mike's place for the night. I was about 16 or so. I'm sleeping on a mattress on the floor. I wake up to cops standing over me, guns drawn. We're charged with possessing stolen property. One of his rooms was filled with stuff. I had no idea. Now, I'd been picked up before. The coppers knew me, they knew my brother, they knew my cousin. But I was either smacked in the head and told to go home, or they'd call my brother and he'd smack me in the head and tell me to get home. This time, it was different.
That's Patrick Keating reading from his play Inside Out. The script follows his story from a youth in prison to a career on the stage. But talking about his past wasn't always something that Patrick was comfortable with.
I never really told anyone about, I was always very shy about it, thinking that, well, if people find out about my background, nobody's going to hire me or people are going to look differently at me. So I always kept it to myself. And then I guess about, since I'm getting older, right, I decided, well, it doesn't matter anymore. If people haven't hired me by now, they certainly aren't going to. So, I decided I'd just do it. Right?
Patrick's story begins decades ago in Montreal.
I guess, I was quite young. I got into drugs when I was fairly, not even a teenager, 12, right? 12, 13. And met people at first they were just into the drug scene, and then you meet other people that just don't do drugs but are just concerned with money and violence, and then you start hanging around with them, and then it sort of snowballs, right?
Juvenile crime led to adult crime, and soon Patrick was serving time in a federal prison for armed bank robbery. In 1980, he transferred to the Matsqui prison in Abbotsford, BC. The prison then hosted courses, including theater, through the University of Victoria. Despite some hesitation, he decided to give it a shot.
I didn't know theater. I knew what theater was, but I didn't really know theater. I'd never been to a play or anything like that. And when you're inside, you're very guarded. There's things that could happen at any second, and if people see weakness, then you're a target, right? And I'm not a big man. You're taught, no, emotion's for weak people, right? You do not express emotion. So to be able to access that and to actually express emotion in front of people that you don't know, that's just insane. So it was a huge challenge. And then I found out that we're actually doing this production that I thought we're just going to be reading it, maybe figure. But yeah, it was like a major operation. People came in, and there was about 200 people that they had to get security clearance in order to get into the institution, and I was cast in one of the roles, and really enjoyed it. I was actually supposed to get out before the play finished, and I ended up putting off my release date to finish the play. I don't know if they were thrilled at that or what, but they were pretty surprised anyways. And I said, I'm not leaving then, right? And they thought that was a joke, and I said, no, seriously, I'm not leaving.
Soon after performing, Patrick was released. Weeks later, there was a major riot at the prison.
The riot squad marched into the front gate as the prisoners were moving toward the assembly point. In just 15 minutes, it was all over. The massive show of force intimidated the prisoners and avoided more bloodshed.
In the wake of the riot, many of Matsqui's programs, including theater, were cut, and a number of the inmates were transferred. Some of those involved in the theater were moved to Victoria's William Head Institution, where they began William Head on Stage. The company has now been performing to the public for over 30 years. Ingrid Hansen was the director of their 2013 production. She says she's seen how theater can be a positive force in the life of inmates.
I think a lot of the guys that I've worked with have, in different ways, been told that they are no good all of their life. And I think that to some extent you start to believe it. It took a few weeks of that repetition of praise and really genuine thank yous from people that they had never met before, until one of the guys said to me, I never thought that I would be ever good at anything in my life other than what I used to do when I was in crime. By the end of the project, we had feedback from like from the guys themselves saying like, wow, I can't believe I've changed so much, and also feedback from some different personnel working at the prison saying, I can't believe how much so-and-so has grown, how much so-and-so has changed.
If it's done in a vacuum, you know, then yes, it'll help to a certain extent. But if you have people from the community coming in, you know, and realizing that people can change, that everybody isn't a monster, right? They may go back, I mean, if they had a drug problem, an alcohol problem, they may go back to that. But for the most part, for them to get out of a cycle of violence and realize that they are part of a world and they have a part to play in it.
Dr. Stephen Duguid taught UVic classes at Matsqui in the 1970s and later coordinated Simon Fraser University's courses there. He led a 1998 independent study tracking the effects of arts and education in BC prisons and later wrote a book about it. He sees two sides to the issue.
I think the theater, my view of it was they were getting a sense of real life experience. The director was from outside. He came in and taught them about how to act. And I think we ended up teaching a kind of another cultural language that they could adopt. They didn't abandon the one they had, but they had another one now they could use, which was ones we would probably use and get by. But on the other hand, people were upset that their kid couldn't get into at UBC, whereas this guy in jail is getting a degree.
After leaving Matsqui, Patrick contacted a theater troupe that had visited the prison and volunteered labor in exchange for the chance to learn. But adjusting to life outside was a challenge, and a few years later he was back in Matsqui, again for bank robbery. After serving his sentence, Patrick decided this time he wasn't going back. He enrolled in theater studies at SFU and made the decision to cut himself off from his old life.
Well, I had to make like a concerted effort because I was known for a particular thing. And there were people that I had worked with before and knew and considered like family, right? And I had to say, no, don't ever call me again.
Over the next 20 years, he would act in dozens of plays and local TV productions, including Supernatural, The Highlander, and The X-Files. Since his release, Patrick has been keeping stories from his life. When he recently shared some of his writing, he realized it connected with people and decided it was the right time to tell his story.
It's quite interesting, you know, because a lot of people, they come up to me on the side and they go, yeah, there's my uncle did some time in jail, or and they're sort of hushed about it, right? And so a lot of people they keep it inside.
Now, he's finishing his script with the support of a Canada Council grant, hoping to show how a lost youth can one day become a found man.
Part of the thing that I'm trying to do with the piece is to show that people are human, you know. It doesn't matter where they are or what they've been through, right? We're escorted through 150 yards of old dark passageway under the streets of Montreal and up into the juvenile court building. Mike wasn't laughing. He was scared. He was about to turn 18 in a couple of weeks. Was worried he'd be sent to adult prison. I was called in first. I didn't know who was who, but told the room, everything's mine, Mike's got nothing to do with nothing. I was 16. I didn't have to worry about adult prison. Mike went home. I was sent to Berthollet, a more modern juvenile prison, with bright lights, razor wire and steel bar cells, with doors that slammed shut.